Danny?
Yep.
Perfect.
All right.
Dr. Carter, how long have you been in Ashland?
On and off since 1946, when I was born. My father was born and raised here, over where the post office is right now, and he would bring us down from Washington, which is where I was born. I'm not a native Ashlander, which much to my discredit, but he would bring us down and visit Grandma and Grandpa, who lived over where the post office is right now. So I've known Ashland for, what was that, 60 years, over 60 years. And then in 1975, my wife and I moved here with two small children and started a medical practice, or went into a medical practice with Dr. Lee. And so we've really been here for 34 years with our family.
You moved from Washington, D.C.? Mm-hmm. Okay. What community did your family first move to when you came here?
Right here on College Avenue.
Okay, and what was Ashland like when you first got here? And I also through your childhood visiting your grandparents.
Lots of difference, because when I was here as a child, it was back in the early 1950s. It was just a small little town, much different from Washington, D.C., which is what I knew and grew up in. And it was just coming back to dirt streets, and you could ride the bike wherever you wanted to, and steam engines going through town, and just a lot of country excitement.
And what makes Ashland so special for you and your family?
I think because it is a town and you're living close to your neighbors, but yet you feel like you're not in a huge city, and so it's got a very country feel to it, and I'm basically a country person.
And what do you remember from your grandparents and their living here?
Well, they had a big old roomy house over right across from the old post office on England and Maple Street, and we'd come down and play with the chickens and the turkeys that they raised. They were basically a little farm within the middle of town. When my father grew up, they actually had crops and horses and cows on about an acre right in the middle of Ashland. When I came along, it was a little more civilized. They actually had electricity and running water. And my grandfather's office, which is out back right now, we moved it over here, was right next door to the big house, and he had his practice there for over 50 years. So he was a country doctor in the middle of town, and I just remember people coming by and visiting. You'd sit on the porch and watch the traffic go by, listen to the trains. And I guess I liked the freedom that was here. You could ride the bike anywhere you wanted to. Grandma would just let us do whatever we wanted to do. You could ride from here to Gwathmey if you wanted to, or up to Vaughn's Crossing and watch the trains. Post office was always great because you had a key to actually go in a box and get your mail rather than have it delivered to the house. There was a wonderful movie theater here that had great movies. They only cost very little amount. I remember maybe 50 cents or something like that. It was just slow country living. And then I guess I remember the summers, because we usually came for long times in the summer, just having no air conditioning. and things were just hot here. Nobody had air conditioning, and you guys probably aren't here in the summertime. It gets hot in Ashland, so you really need air conditioning. Of course, Grandma never had it, never wanted it, and they were never bothered by it, but it got hot in Ashland.
And did your grandparents share any stories about their youth and growing up in Ashland or living here?
Yeah, lots of them. I don't remember any specific ones. I think they pretty much did what we did. They had their own circle of friends. There was all kinds of activities here that kept them in Ashland, but yet they went to Richmond. They'd ride the train. You could ride the train down to Broad Street Station, be in the middle of Richmond within half hour or certainly within an hour. They had a bus that took them to Richmond, so they weren't cut off from culture and all the goings on in Richmond and the big stores, Miller and Rhodes and Tallheimers. They could get down and do their shopping down there if they wanted to. But yet, just like nowadays, you can get away from the big city, get back into Ashland, and just sort of settle into a little more slow time.
What do you know about the CCC camp and building roads in Ashland?
Way before my time, but I know we also have a farm right outside of Ashland, and there's an old CCC road that goes through Jamestown out to our farm, and we could ride it in horses. I'd actually ride my bicycle down it and into town, and I just remember hearing Daddy talk about the CCC road that was made during the 1930s, I guess, and that's my only contact with it. That's all I know about it.
And what schools did your children attend?
They went to Patrick Henry. Nope, scratch that. They went to Henry Clay, kindergarten till the third grade, then Gandy for several years, and then most of them went on into Richmond after that to St. Christopher's and Collegiate. And don't forget the preschool, Kitty Kingdom. They all went to Kitty Kingdom.
And how did teachers discipline students then?
Didn't need to. They were good kids. They never got in any trouble. I think kids back then were a little more respectful of their elders and didn't have quite the freedom that they. My perception as an old person now, the freedom to talk back to older people and act up. I think with our children, if you told them to do something, they pretty much did it. And when a teacher told them to do something, they straightened up.
And what were the major differences between your education and your parents and your children's?
I'm not sure there's any difference between what we did. My father, who grew up here in town, commuted to Richmond to a private school called McGuire School in Richmond. And then he went to the University of Virginia. My mother went to a private school in Washington, D.C., Holton Arms. She was from Alabama, but she boarded at Holton Arms in Washington. I grew up in Washington, went to a private school, St. Albans, in Washington. My wife attended public schools in North Carolina. And my kids started out in public school here in Ashland, and then we made a choice for them to go to private schools in Richmond. So I think, and then we all went to college. I went to the University of Virginia. one of my children went to the University of Virginia, and then others went to Alabama and Washington College and Sewanee. So, we pretty much did what my parents did.
And in what ways did having a college in town affect your life?
Good or bad?
Either.
The good things are and were and still are that you get a sense of vibrancy in the community. The kids, you hear them talking, partying, playing, and that's good to hear, even if it is 1 or 2 at night. Nowadays, the kids, I think, party a little more inside than they used to when we first moved here. It was pretty wild back in the 70s. Kids, the college kids roamed the territory, and we partied with them sometimes in our younger days, and they would party up and down our street. We lost many a bush to the KAs for their Old South weekend. They the deal was to go dig up any kind of bush they could find, and we had azaleas out front, and they would dig those azaleas up, and we could follow the trail of dirt through the street to their fraternity. And we'd let them have it, and then we'd go get them when the weekend was over, and sometimes we made them replant it, and it was fun. It was a give and take proposition then. We had cars sideswiped by drunken students. Those are some of the bad things that happened. The college offers a lot of entertainment and culture that we might not get if we didn't go to Richmond, and sometimes it's a hassle to go to Richmond. So the concerts are good, and the music that comes out here is good from the college. Right now, we're in the middle of a fight with the college, with them sort of moving into the community and buying up houses that we as a community feel threatened by. The college, if they get a house, one, it takes the house off of the tax base, so taxes go up, and 2, it takes away the potential for having a family here with kids, and that detracts a little bit from the small town atmosphere here. And we don't want it to become too sterile. We want children and families to be able to come into town. And if the college buys everything up, which they look like they're doing right now, at least in our area, we lose that ability to do that. That would be the major disadvantage right now. But in the college's behalf, in their defense, they are trying to work with us and help us understand what they want to do. And so we've got a committee trying to work some of these things out.
Did anyone in your family attend Randolph-Macon College?
No.
And what do you remember about events that took place at Randolph-Macon, aside from the azaleas and the cars side sweeping, through your, I guess, younger years of living here?
Wow. Now, when I went to the University of Virginia, we'd come down here and party with the Randolph-Macon guys and girls. Well, with the guys. There weren't girls back then. And that was always fun. I mean, there were great parties down here back in the 60s. And what I remember of them were very much fun. And we had Camptown races, which I don't know if you guys celebrate that at all. Do you all have Camptown race weekend or Camptown weekend?
No.
I've never heard of it.
Okay, that's a thing of the past then. That was a great Bacchanalian event where they had horse races just outside of town, and a lot of people, including us as kids and young adults, were having a good time. So that was always fun.
Are you referring to the racetrack on Ashcake Road?
Wait a minute. Am I what?
There was once a racetrack on Ashcake Road. Is that where it took place?
No. It was the one I'm talking about. The Camptown races were out. They were originally at the Cheenery's farm up in Caroline County, which is where the state fair is going right now. Can't think of the name of the at the Meadows, where Hill Prince and Prince Hill and Cicada and who's a Triple Crown winner more recently, can't think of his name, all came from. But that's where the Camptown races started. Then it moved to Hanover County, back in the 60s, I guess, early 60s, I guess. And it was out by towards where Bear Island is now, about halfway between here and Hanover Courthouse. Racetrack on Ashcake Road, I don't know about. There's Racecourse Street, which is down the railroad, and they think a racecourse was there at one time, and that's near Ashcake, but not on Ashcake.
Did your family attend church?
Yeah.
Where did you attend, and who made up the congregation?
Now you're talking about my immediate family, wife, kids, that kind of thing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we all go to Fork Episcopal Church, which is just outside of Ashland, up on Old Ridge Road.
Have you attended other churches in the area?
St. James we went to for a little while, which is Episcopal Church on Beverly Road.
And what made you switch congregations?
I think I said at the beginning I was more of a country person, and I just liked going out in the country on a Sunday morning and coming back on a Sunday afternoon.
What was your church's and the minister's role in civil affairs among the community?
Not sure that's applicable.
Okay.
We did the usual outreach things, and we combined with St. James here in town to do some outreach things. But country churches are more self-sufficient and tend to do things themselves and within themselves, and I like that.
What are some of your earliest childhood memories in Ashland?
Well, I've talked about some of them. I just remember visiting grandparents. I love trains from the very beginning, always have. I collect electric trains now. And the trains were a big part of my childhood here in town. And Grandma would take me up on the railroad track, and we'd watch the steam engines. I remember some of the last steam engines coming through town back in the early 50s. Scared to death. I remember peeing in my pants when they'd come by because it was so loud, and she'd let me stand right beside the station, and it was exciting. And then we had an old swing on the porch at Grandma's house, and we went up to Doswell, and she got a piece of wood, and that was the stool that you get up on the train with, we pretended, and the swing on the porch was the train, and she would be a passenger and I would be the conductor, and I would help her up the stool and sit on the swing, and then we'd swing on the swing, and that would be the train going and moving, and we go higher and higher, and then I'd slow it down and we'd stop and get off, and she would do that for hours with us. She was a wonderful grandmother who would just play with you endlessly. I remember the post office being a central place where everybody went, and you saw everybody in the morning when the mail was put out, and I think they'd put out the mail again in the afternoon. You'd have two postings And so you'd go back and check again, and the same people would be back there, and you'd converse and talk about what they had done during the day. I didn't because I was little, but I'd listen to my grandparents talk. Remember Grandpa being a country doctor and everybody coming from all over. You listening?
Yeah.
Everybody coming from town or out in the county to see him in his office. Remember big old cars from the 50s that were pretty slow back then, it would seem like. Dirt streets, a lot of dust. One stoplight in town, out on number 1. In fact, that might have been the only stoplight in the whole county for a while. Now we've got probably got 10 within town. So that's been a huge change. My family had another farm right outside of town, which is where Interstate 95 is now. And I remember that being a dairy farm, and relatives worked on that, and now that's all motels and truck stops and fast food places. That's been a huge change. And McDonald's. Mm-hmm. What's the name of the horse? The Triple Crown winner?
Oh,
Secretariat. Yeah, Secretariat.
Secretariat.
And that Hanover
Triple
claimed Secretariat,
Crown winner.
but really he was born in Caroline County, not Hanover. But Hanover forgets that.
Who was your childhood role model?
I guess my father. I just wanted to be a doctor like him.
What kind of doctor are you?
Family practice.
And your father was the same?
He was a cardiologist, but he was a specialist, but he did basically a country practice in Washington, D.C. He was a souped-up country doctor, but that's what he did. He was a very people person. Did general medicine.
He took care of the rich and famous.
Yeah.
He did.
That's why you really need to have interviewed him. Unfortunately, he's not here anymore, but he had some wonderful stories about all of his.
He was a society doctor. He took
in
care
Washington.
of everybody, rich and the upper crust. But a country guy at heart.
That's why they liked him up there.
How are you expected to behave in front of adults?
How am I?
How were you as growing?
I thought I was an adult. I don't think, again, there wasn't, nobody sat down and said, this is the way you behave. We just, we interacted with them. And Grandma was one of us. She was just a great grandmother who played down in the dirt with us, and I don't remember ever being disciplined about anything. We just had fun with adults.
And I know you're from a medical family, obviously, but what kinds of healthcare options were available in Ashland?
Well, when I was a child, there was really very little insurance. You just the grandpa's patients would come. They'd pay him. We've got some old receipts from him that people paid 50 cents or $1 for a visit. A really expensive visit was about $10, where he'd do some minor surgery. I think people paid in cash or in kind. I know he got lots of hams and chickens, and they'd bring him fish and that type of thing. Now, Daddy in Washington was, they were more sophisticated up there, and I guess there was some type of insurance. But again, most people just paid cash.
Where were your children born?
Ooh, you may have to help me.
Charlottesville,
Let me try. Okay. Yeah, oldest was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. The next was born in Newport News, Virginia. And then the last two were born in Richmond at St. Mary's Hospital.
Were they born with doctors assisting the delivery or a midwife?
No, that's a legitimate
This
question.
is the
I said,
midwife?
yeah. No, they were all doctor assisted.
And who made the decisions about housekeeping and the budget and other?
In our present house, wife. We have a budget. I've got it on a piece of paper. We're going to frame it one day. We never.
When we were first married.
When we were first married, it's a joke. We never went by it. Always exceeded it.
And how are decisions or other decisions such as schooling and moving and occupation and the approval of marriage made?
Approval of marriage?
If that was a situation, I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. Let me answer the others. Maybe ask it again.
Well, how are decisions like schooling and occupation and approval of marriage? Like, I don't know if you had to have if your parents had an influence on your marriage, or if your children, if you had to approve of their marriages, or any other situations like that.
Well, we've approved of all of their marriages. I presume my parents approved of our marriage. We were pretty traditional. I asked for Diana's hand in marriage of her father. All of my sons-in-law have asked me